so that if the worst happens or if something happens, a life-changing event, they have everything in place to, move as needed, right?
Yeah.
Most people don't realize that we all have a will naturally in the state of Georgia. It's called dying intestate. But that just means that your will now, or your assets now go to probate.
Oh.
So the courts get to decide, which typically it takes anywhere from 2 to 5 years.
Yeah.
In deciding where those assets go. So you might hear of like celebrities saying like their estate was settled.
Yeah.
I believe Prince might have just had his estate settled.
Oh,
Not
wow.
sure. I don't want to speak on it on
Yeah,
camera. I think so.
Officially, but yeah.
But I'm pretty sure that and that's years after his passing, right? And that's just because it has to go through the court system. The court has to decide, who has their claim to the money as well, and what's valuable, or what's a viable claim and what's not.
So we don't want to wait to the last minute, because
You
you can expect the unexpected. I mean, I guess you can if you're prepared, but you never know when it's coming. So I would hate for all my assets to be tied up, especially here in Georgia. None of my family's here.
Exactly.
None of the people that I want to benefit from, anything I've built is here in Georgia.
Very much so. And I would even say, Brittany, to that point is that, not just about passing down the assets, right? But let's just say, God forbid, someone's incapacitated. A healthcare directive is right along the lines of that will, and like I said, healthcare directive and power of attorney, because we want to make sure that not only can we pass down the assets, but can we make a financial decision, or can we make on your behalf, or can we make a health decision on your behalf? And the answer is, without that documentation, no. So you can have a family member, won't share the name, but just for purposes of knowing how real it can get, one of my colleagues, essentially his mother was incapacitated, and it was a family split because half the family wanted them to revive her, but he remembers specifically that she had a DNR on her will, right? So do not revive me. And the family was like, well, you're trying to kill mom.
Of course.
He's like, no, she doesn't want to be revived. This is what she wanted. So if without that documentation, they could still be a tiff or a rift because it was just emotion.
Yeah,
right?
And that's what it is. And I've seen that a lot. Like, I've seen that in other people's family, in my own family, when it comes to that point. And I have heard some of my family members say, I don't want to suffer. So if it gets to that point, let me go. But other, like you said, emotional family members, like, I can't let you go. Like, and feels like it's something like they're doing, like, to hold on to you. You know what I mean? And it's caused permanent divides in families, people that never speak again because of this. But you're saying that we can set this in place so that...
Yeah, and it's not very expensive. Not very expensive at all. I have estate planning attorneys that I'd be happy to connect anyone with, but $500 to get something in place for the rest of your life.
Yeah, and you know what's gonna happen.
Yes, and as life changes, of course, and as assets grow, you want to make changes to those documents as necessary, but it's something that you can have in the peace of mind, and to know, like, hey, I'm taken care of documentation-wise.
Yeah, in this aspect. I like that. Okay, so that's a great place to start.
Yes, and the next thing is, of course, retirement, right? A lot of my clients, they come to me and say, hey, Kalik, I've done a great job with growing my assets. I've done a great job with making money. But how does it affect me, 10, 15, 20 years down the road at age 65, whatever the case, until I get there? I've even got some clients that retire once a month, believe it or not. So they're doing well enough to be able to take time off to, take a hiatus.
Okay.
Because they felt it
was... I like that.
I loved it.
I like that idea.
I was like, hey, that's awesome.
Wait a minute now.
They felt like it was better for their mental and their production. So I was like, you just see all these different things and you hear all these ideas, but ultimately, at the end of the day, no one wants to run out of money.
I know.
No one wants to run out of money when they need it. No one wants to run out of money when they're, maybe not need it, but like maybe retirement's right there and they, maybe want to take a step back from working. The saddest thing I see, Britt, and no knock on anything, is to see someone my grandparents' age working in a capacity that they probably shouldn't if they had just, focused on it a little earlier. So that's why I say it doesn't matter how young you are. It doesn't matter how old you are either, because it's never too late to start.
And it's never too early.
It's never too early. So I talk to my younger brothers now, they're 18, 22, like, hey, start thinking about, putting aside savings, and not just savings because that's just surface level.
Yeah.
Right? Just knowing that there's a different side to it. There's an older you that's going to appreciate that.
Yeah, and letting some money grow somewhere. For me, what really affects me is seeing my grandmother like live on a fixed income. You know, she's 91. She worked a long time. She worked really hard, and she lives on a fixed income. Like just whatever is left from that. And then they say by the time that we're of age, there won't even be Social Security.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's just like, you know, of course, the great
projection,
debate. But
right.
Know, at the end of the day, I think that if you do the proper planning early enough,
you don't have to worry about it or count on it.
Exactly. It'll just be another asset that you can either use or not use if you don't have to.
Okay, so estate planning,
retirement, asset management also ties into retirement planning because someone might say, hey, I have a 401k, or I have an IRA, or I have a Roth, or I have something that I started maybe younger or with a company. How does it make sense for me right now? And we'll say, hey, well, let's look at that and audit it. And make sure that you're aligned with your risk appetite and also with the time horizon that you have to draw those said assets, right?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you know, we grow money with the best of them. You know, that's what you want to do as a young individual, and even as somebody that's older. You want to grow your wealth, but you want to have your assets also located in the right spot, right?
Yeah.
Because if you're getting taxed on capital gains and because your asset pays a dividend and now you're getting hit on a dividend tax, I mean, it's just so many different ways you can get hit by the, you know, by the IRS if you're not protecting yourself.
Yeah.
With the proper location of those assets. And that's why I say asset management is, you know, it's great, you gotta build them, but they also have to be located in the right spots.
Yeah, so that is actually beneficial, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the next thing I would say is educational planning. So for my clients that have kids or grandkids, whatever the case, maybe student loan debt of their own, we just attack it in whatever manner that makes the most sense. I've got clients, for my wealthier clients, they're like, hey, I can pay off all of my student loan debt now. And a lot of times we're not like, that doesn't make sense, only because there are things to do planning wise to get you a better return, to have the ability to pay those student loans off, you know, 2, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years down the road.
Down the line, and
versus,
it makes more sense.
Exactly.
Pouring $80,000 into this now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now you're making a profit off of just waiting a few years versus having, you know, paid it off and being back at square zero.
Yeah.
And so the next thing I would say is risk management.
Okay.
Insurance. I love doing insurances, but it gives what I do such a bad name because many individuals have a bad experience with just insurance companies.
Yeah.
It's really apples to apples, but at the same time, some apples you ain't gonna eat, right?
Right.
You know, but at the same time, we help protect people's incomes. We help protect their businesses. And just any personal liabilities that they might have that could draw from their income and their personal financial portfolio.
Yeah.
Just protecting them,
Yeah.
essentially. Like things like umbrella insurance.
Okay.
Like I talk to people, they're like, I don't even know what umbrella insurance is.
Yeah, me either. I'm like, what's that?
Right? But that's just something that, you know, let's just say, you know, 285 it was deemed one of the busiest highways. I think it was the year 2020, it might still be, in the country, right? So that just means that there are a constant flow of people on that highway. Let's just say if someone gets into a car accident, but they don't have any umbrella insurance, but they're worth a couple of million, the person that they hit not only needs traditional care, but they need long-term care because they're hurt for a long time. So now they are just gonna go over the policy limit, right? Because the policy limits typically aren't gonna pay more than a certain amount.
Yeah.
Now they can come towards your personal assets.
Yep.
And so what we tell our clients is to, hey, have some low-hanging fruit there. Go get an umbrella insurance policy from your auto provider.
Yeah.
And say, hey, it could be your Progressive, your Safety, whoever you use for your car. It's $10 a month, 10, 15, maybe $20 a month to get $1 million.
Yeah, so that way they're not
insurance.
coming after.
Exactly. So
everything.
If you have real assets, umbrella insurance policies are a must.
Yeah.
It's a must because we don't want them to come after, again, your assets. We're trying to protect you, put a cocoon around you as a person.
Yeah, that's what
to
it sounds
say
like.
If something happens to you, you're gonna be fine.
From every angle. You guys think of everything.
Everything. And I hate to sound so vague.
No, like.
That's often what brings us clients because
Yeah.
someone says, hey, I didn't even realize I could do this.
I didn't even know this was an option. I didn't even think of this as a possibility that it could happen.
Yes, and
I
that's
like
why I
that
say
umbrella.
is, I can do insurance, I can do assets, but I want to give you a plan, right? You might
Yeah.
have an asset manager, you might have an advisor in that realm, you might have somebody who gave you the right amount of insurance, because that's another question is how'd you get to the number of insurance? Like, how'd you choose the amount? A lot of people just say, hey, that sounded like a good number.
So I went with it.
So I went with it,
I'm
right?
one of those people.
Exactly. Well,
Sounds good. Like,
there's nothing's wrong with that. Nothing's wrong with that at all. But it's just like, again, you might be overinsured or you might be grossly underinsured based off of what you're bringing in, right?
Yeah.
So you might be paying way more than you need to, or something like, again, you just don't want to get to a spot of only having one or two options. Anytime I tell Britt, I tell my clients this all the time, is anytime I've ever not enjoyed something is when I've only had one or two options.
Wow, I like that.
I mean, I want to be able to choose,
Yeah.
and not having a choice sometimes makes a difference.
Those limited options.
It does.
Yeah.
And to move on to the next thing, I would say a lot of my clients are in the phase of owning a business and needing corporate structure.
Okay.
So they say, hey, Kalik, I've created an LLC or a S Corp, C Corp, whatever the case, a business entity of some sorts. And I just want to make sure that it's structured in the proper way that I can get the most tax benefits in terms of, tax write-offs, expensable actions, things like that. Like, I just want to make sure that I'm on track. We're not a CPA, but I work very closely with your CPA to make sure that everything we're bringing to the table is legal.
Yeah.
Because we're so highly regulated, and that's, again, you want to make sure that you're working with someone who's regulated, because if you're not and they take all of your money, they just took your money and now you're out of it.
Yeah.
So, and that's just the bad side of it. But as far as corporate structure, what we'll do is, something like a deferred comp plan if someone needs it, just to create that golden handcuff of sorts, right? So let's just say if you don't want to lose one of your key people, you want to keep them there for 5, 10, 15 plus years. Business owners come to me and say, hey, Kalik, what can you put on the table that makes it the most enticing opportunity so that they won't get headhunted, so that they won't leave for benefits?
Yeah.
And what we are seeing today in 2022, it's a benefits game.
It is.
If I can get better benefits, but maybe $10,000 less a year, I still get good benefits, I'm gonna go with the good benefits, right? Especially if it's, gonna cost me less in terms of providing insurance for myself.
Especially millennials,
Yes.
We're not trying to get the Rolex. We're not trying to stay 25
Some
years.
of us.
Some of us are,
Yeah.
but like
I've seen
that
some.
was the goal. That was the goal of everyone, let's say a few decades back. Now we they pay more or the benefits better over there?
Exactly.
I see y'all. I like y'all, but I see y'all.
And I would even attest that to the entrepreneurial mindset, to know that you can spend your time doing something on the side, and that could be your mainstay.
Yeah.
And to know that the traditional 9 to 5 isn't what makes sense all of the time.
For everyone.
For everyone. It still serves its purpose.
It does.
But it may not make sense for everyone at certain points, right?
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I've had plenty of 9 to 5.
Look,
You know what I mean?
Me too.
I
respect it.
Right?
And I think it's purposeful.
Absolutely.
And for someone, it might be their thing. Because if we're all entrepreneurs, who's gonna work for us?
Exactly.
Who's gonna work at our corporations and our businesses? So I value it. I have one right now, and it's doing what it needs to do. It's doing exactly what I needed to do.
Yes.
Yeah.
I served tables while I did this.
Yeah.
So
I've served before too.
Really? Did you used to serve at?
Yeah, I used to serve at the Commerce Club. You ever heard of that?
Yeah.
It's like a members only type club here in Atlanta, social club.
That's awesome.
That was my first server job. I used to bartend there. I used to serve at Flying Biscuit. I used to serve at Benihana.
I love their grits, by the way.
That's how I make my grits.
Really?
I took the recipe, I stole it, and that's how I make my grits.
We can't be saying that on here.
right. I'm sorry. I did a copycat.
Yeah, no, you just imitation. No, but
the cheese is different.
Right?
I served at Benihana. That was like the most ghetto experience I've ever had. The one here in Buckhead, or the one over in Buckhead. Oh my God.
Yes.
But it takes a certain type of personality. You meet some cool people serving.
You do.
You meet some hustlers.
You hear some great conversations too. I've heard, man, I'm sure you could attest to that. Like, you just learn people's life stories as a server, so.
And you get really inspired. Working at the Commerce Club inspired me so much. Like, you know, a lot of people who are movers and shakers and really had a lot of wealth. I'm like, like right here, and just to listen to what they're talking about.
Yeah.
And they were talking over my head, but I was listening.
No, for sure. I mean, for instance, just to piggyback on that, what led me even to want more money, right, was I used to valet at this place called Park Place on Peachtree, and don't know if I can disclose who all lives there and stuff like that.
Right.
Like, I was valeting for like Frank Holder, Elton John, you name it. Like, in terms of old money in Atlanta, I'm talking about money on buildings and people who are funding that. Those projects. So it just led me to realize that the wealthiest people don't show their wealth.
No.
You know, not all of them. Some of them have a good time. But
real money's not loud, is it?
It's not. And that's something that led me to, you know, wanting to help people, right? Because everything I've learned has just been to make money, put it into savings, and, you know, get a nice car, get a nice house, and get those things as fast as you can. And I think just how life works is just, if you want something, you put it into the air, it kind of leads you to that. So I was able to learn, you know, not the rules of the game, but like somewhat what makes sense, right?